Hello, everybody. It's Grizzly from Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome to our new show, Grizzly Paranormal and True Crimes, with the world renowned psychic Ginette Lucas. A new show of ours. We never know where we're going to go or where it's going to take us. Ginette, are you there?
I'm here. I'm here.
This is our first. How about that?
How about that?
I know. I'm real excited.
I think it's time to roll out the red carpet and talk. I don't want to say talk dirty, but talk dirty about treasure hunting, maybe a true crime case, the bad, good, and ugly, and get your advice, because certainly you have some.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely down for that.
Yeah.
I really am.
So,
yeah, guys, ladies and gentlemen, from coast to coast and around the world, you got us tonight. It's going to be very interesting. It's we're just now putting this together, so bear with us. And where do you want to start at? You say?
Well, let's talk about my Al Capone case, and we'll talk about finding treasure.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that. I heard you're really good with that.
I am. But before I start talking about my Al Capone case, happy holidays to everyone. And I'm going to get you to tell everybody what happened to you about your missing wallet. And now you owe me a cup of coffee.
Oh, Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, let me brief you on this. So the other day, I went to leave and I have the credit card wallet. And inside there's my debit card. I looked for over an hour and a half and I could not find it. An hour and a half. I have my outside clothes on. I'm sweating. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting mad. And now I'm not the one that usually calls on people for help. Because I know how people are, that people use people just because they have the abilities or gifts or whatnot. I said, screw it. I'm calling Ginette, which I also have other outlets I could use, but Ginette and I are starting this new show. So I called Ginette. I'm like, Ginette, look, I'm sorry to bother you. And she's always busy. I thought I was busy. I mean, look, I lost my credit card wallet. I have no idea where it's at. And before I can say anything else, she says it's next to a blonde piece of furniture or wood, and you have to move something to get to it. And I'm like, okay. She says, call me back. I said, okay. So I'll go into each bedroom, and I'm looking. I'm like, you know what? There's not blonde furniture in here. So I'll go to the next bedroom. No. I go into the bathrooms. No. So I go in the kitchen and I'm leaning against the kitchen sink. And I'm looking over towards the stove. And I look and there's my wood block, chopping block. It's very big. It actually takes up the whole counter and it's probably about 2 inches thick, maybe 2.5 inches thick. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It's made out of some blonde wood. So when I looked to the left of it, there was an empty case of Diet Mountain Dew sitting in the center of the stove. I'm like, there's no way this is happening. So I go over, pick up the box, and lo and behold, there's my wallet. And she was right. I had to move something to get to it. I called her back right away. I was like, you ain't going to believe this. She was right. And I told her exactly where it was. I said, I got to go. So I was running late already. So I found out, talked to her beforehand, that people do call her to find missing things and missing objects like keys and so forth. So it worked.
It does work. Yeah, see, a lot of people, let's go back and break this down. So what I do is I tell people, if you want to find something, sit down at the table, relax, put down a piece of paper, and I like pens. Pencils are fine. and write down, I lost this item. And you write down, I lost my wallet. Now, you could have three wallets because people have called me and I found the three keys, but not the particular key that we were looking for. So you write down my cheat sheet. It's called Who, What, When, Where, How. So who would be Grizzly or Chris, and then what wallet? It would be my everyday wallet filled up with credit cards, cash, that kind of thing. And you can also label it Grizzly's wallet because it could be your daughter's wallet we end up finding. And then you say where, and I always write down the address of where the item might be missing because it could also be in the car. I had a guy call one time and I said, I keep seeing a telephone pole, so I don't think it's in the house. But how many cars do you have? And he said, three. And I said, I feel dark, dark. And he goes, I have a brown car. I said, no, dark, dark. And he goes, I've got a cop car that's black. And I said, go there. I think I'm on the passenger side. And you go in a radius. I call it the radius. The center is the missing item. So in the radius, I found the butcher block thing, which I thought it was furniture at first. So I said wood furniture, wood. So blonde wood. So you eliminated it by going to the bedroom because first thought I thought was, I'm being taken to a bedroom. But that was my biased personality saying, oh, go to the bedroom. But you did go to the bedroom and that worked out. But you said, nothing in here blonde at all. Okay, so you're walking around your house and now you're looking for not the wallet, which is really great. You're looking for what's next to the wallet or in the radius of the wallet. And I think sometimes cops need to think that way too when they go after a killer. He's driving this kind of car. Don't look for the killer, look for the car, then look in the car. Or look for the killer hiding in the trunk, or think outside the box and say, okay, so he's on Monroe Street and Massachusetts on the corner. Okay, well, look at the radius. And a lot of people don't do that. Now, how about you? Did you do that when you were a cop? Do you look at the radius?
Yeah, I mean, we always looked around, absolutely, but fortunately enough, we really didn't have that many murder scenes or crime scenes because, where our department was located, we didn't have that much besides some break-ins and so forth. And, I mean, golly, I mean, just, I think the other day, I think they had a murder scene, I think a couple years ago, and that's probably two that I'm aware of. And I'm 48 years old, so
That was in Indiana, right?
yep, Indiana.
Some places are just really quiet. And thank God for that. I mean, I'm in an area where I'm sort of west of Richmond, and it's very quiet. Now they've had an increase in stolen catalytic converters, and they're also having an increase on the east side of stolen cars. But they've upped the construction because we don't have enough housing or we don't have enough commercial buildings. So in comes the transients, or in comes the people that might have an agenda to take your car. And then, I've read articles where people actually move somewhere to create crime. I mean, it just is what it is. I'm sure you've been taught that when you were a cop too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing towards the end of my career before I went to the private sector was fentanyl. Heroin laced with fentanyl
Yeah.
pills and so forth. I mean, the county I was in at the end was, I think, the number one county in Indiana for ODs
Oh,
because of it. So, I mean, it was really getting out of hand at the time.
that's horrible.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I had a friend whose son was hanging around the wrong people and they wanted money, money, money. And they actually put fentanyl in his Coca-Cola and it killed him. And so, unfortunately, because he was hanging around the wrong people, it didn't turn into a homicide. It turned into overdose, where he did die. And because everybody kept saying he was doing drugs, and the mother was saying, no, he did not do drugs. I know he did pot periodically, but no, higher level drugs, no coke, no this, no that. And even his other friends came out of the woodwork and said that's not true. But unfortunately, again, he was hanging around the wrong people, so he was pretty much a closed case. I mean, he was right. So some of these people don't realize if you get murdered because of money or because of fentanyl, nothing's going to happen. It's over. Your family is going to have to deal with the grieving.
There is a mislabel on a lot of deaths that way because of that type of drug or something related along those lines.
Well,
Because it's hard to prove otherwise.
yeah, but look at John Belushi, the woman he was hanging around. She got charged with his murder because she actually gave him the drugs. Now you do it for Belushi, but you don't do it for the street guy or the girl next door. I mean, a little awkward. I
Yeah.
mean, families just tolerate this. I mean, they there's not much they can do. You're definitely out of control. You don't have any control of this at all.
Well, now I find out the last time since we talked, there's a game to where they see how much they can take, such as a narcotic, and into the OD, and then they use Narcan and bring them back. And I'm like, what the hell? Why are why are y'all messing with death?
I don't. Yeah, that's extreme, but they're doing it. I mean, there are a lot of games out there, and I guess they think it's going to be a risk worth taking. Oh, I came back. Well, you have a 50-50 shot of not coming back. That if that's what they want to do, that's their choice. But I heard that. I mean, you can tell me and the listeners. I heard that they don't know much what's going on when they're on fentanyl. Is that true?
That is correct. I mean, it really messes with your brain and your
Okay.
reflexes and so forth. If you remember, not too long ago, the police officer was on a traffic stop, and a senior officer pulled up to help him, and he was like, "Hey, if that's fentanyl, you better be careful. Don't get too close." And next thing you know, he just drops down to the ground, and he is ODing just being close to it because there's so much of it, and he had to use Narcan to bring him back.
Now
So that's how deadly fentanyl is, and people need to
right.
understand this. This is nothing to mess with, and they're
No.
actually lacing, uh, marijuana, joints, and other stuff with fentanyl. And fentanyl is not like a pill to where you can say, "Okay, I'm going to put this much on there, and that's it." You never know how much you're putting on there because each dose that you put on there could be a little or a whole lot. It's not measurable.
Hmm. Well, let me ask this. There was a thing in the news, uh, uh, a breaking news about a police officer, a female, who got around the fentanyl, and she just dropped. And I guess they had a camera on her. You know how they wear the little camera on their
Body cam.
body cam. Thanks. And and they were showing the beginning, middle, and end. I believe she made it, but she was just taking care of an arrest, and it was fentanyl, and she fell to the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, there you go, same story, just different time. So yeah, and right now, a lot of people are unaware. There's a brand new fentanyl where they're putting it in a candy. It looks like some of it looks like a Sucrets, some of it looks like an M&M, some of it looks like like a sour candy or something.
Uh-huh.
And the kids are just dropping dead. Elementary school students are dropping dead. In California, they had a woman who her girlfriend was a doctor, and her daughter, somebody gave her a fentanyl piece of candy, and she sucked on it, and she died. We had a girl here in Richmond, Virginia. Well, it's a town called Ashland, north of Richmond, and her buddy gave her like 2 or 3 pieces of the fentanyl candy, and she passed out. He took her home, left her there, All he had to do was take her to the hospital, get some Narcan. So, folks, if you're out there, take them straight to the hospital. Don't play and take them home and leave them there. They will die. And she did not get attention, and she died. And he got a year in prison. That's it. All right. So
That's crazy.
there's no justice. So you do have to have some more sit down talks. I mean, I know people are talking about lots of things with their kids, sex, you know, demon groups, devil groups, or whatever. Because I guess you heard in the news about the new group that's out there at some of the 16 high schools, and they're worshiping the devil. I don't know if you heard about that in the
No,
news.
I have not.
Oh yeah, it's brand new. And some parents are showing up saying, we're not going to take this, and this group is not going to be in our high school. But there are 16 different high schools having the same after school entertainment. They're calling it entertainment, and it's worshiping the devil. And they're saying, well, it's a safe place for high school students. I personally don't believe that. That seems a little bit reaching for me. What's your take? New entertainment policy.
Well, first off, who's coming up with this? The school or the
No, they interviewed a woman, and she had invented the process and said, we're going to do some worshiping of the devil or dress like the devil, that kind of thing. It was very, very odd.
But I thought they had to get that approved by the school board or the superintendent as a curriculum.
Well, it's there. And, the families I was really happy to see families actually taking part in protesting it, because, the term devil is also a very negative direction. If you don't have to pray to Jesus, you could certainly say, oh, we're going to go have an animal club, or we're going to have a Girl Scout club or Boy Scout club. But no, we're going to go worship the devil and have a club. Okay, so that is a problem, and it is being contested, and I think it's going to turn out to be a saga for 2-3 years. I think it's going to come to the limelight even more, and I don't know how the county said, well, yeah, okay, if you promise not to do anything. But, it can escalate. People do sacrifice animals. They do sacrifice people in extreme circumstances. And have you heard of things like that before? Because I have.
Well, and I tell you, when younger children actually act out with killing animals, small animals, and doing stuff like that, and actually, as they get older, they actually do found that some of the serial killers actually did that when they were children. So yes, it does and can turn into something major as they get older. But what are they using? Are they trying to use the Constitution for
Right. Absolutely.
their groups, saying that they are
Absolutely.
allowed to? Or
So far,
yeah,
it's
see,
been permitted. But if
yeah,
you're a
I
parent,
figured somebody was using
mhm.
that.
See, my kids are out of school. They're in college. So as far as
Right.
I'm concerned, if if I had to help one of my friends and protest against it, I would be the protester, because I
Oh,
had
yeah.
four near deaths. I do believe in God, and I think that negative thinking is not helpful for our society. And look at Dahmer. He unfortunately, I think Dahmer had quite a few complications. I mean, okay, so he may have worshipped the devil. We really don't know. But his mom had taken some medications, and it may have messed up his brain. We don't know. We're not permitted to know everything about Dahmer, but he's a prime example of things going wrong and escalation.
Well, I mean, you actually are right on that, and my thing is as I got older, and grown up, they start fighting, taking the prayer out of schools, the Ten Commandments out of schools, uh, even Pledge of Allegiance. I can't even talk. One nation under God, you know, they took that out, and it's like, and now they're starting up demonology or something, and I mean, I just don't get it.
It's definitely an eye opener. Well, I wanted to address that. So let's move on. Sidebar. Let's talk about some fun treasure hunting, since we talked about you finding your wallet and owing me a cup of coffee. So what kind of coffee we're going to have here? Are we going to do a Starbucks?
Oh,
Or
I
are we going
like
to do?
double espresso or latte or something like that.
That means we need a coffee maker, or we need one of
Yeah,
those Keurigs, right?
yeah, I like to know how much one of those runs. I need to look into that.
Oh my God. There's some new ones out there that it's not just the coffee maker, it's the coffee cup maker. So Keurig does it, so do quite a few. And the third one is like a latte. Automatically you can set the clock, and suddenly you wake up at 8 a.m. from that aroma, and you've got a latte. So I say let's move ahead with a latte. Latte,
Yes.
have you ever had a latte?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Decadent.
So when I was on the city, when I was a lot younger, my captain and I were working off duty at Myers, and in front of there was a coffee shop. I can't remember what it was called. It wasn't Starbucks. It was a family owned one. So we went over there, and I placed an order for an extra large latte with something else extra in it. And she goes, "Sir, have you ever had this?" I'm like, "No." She says, "Then I wouldn't recommend a large. I would recommend either a small or medium, the most." And I'm like, "No, I'll take a large, please. That's what I want. I'm ready, and I'm been wanting to taste one." And
Oh God.
basically, I got halfway down into it, and my gosh, I mean, I couldn't sit still in the squad car. I mean, I was bouncing around, and I kept drinking more of it, and I ended up actually getting sick off of it.
Yeah, yeah, you can.
And my captain
Yeah,
told me that's why she told you not to order a large.
she warned
So,
you.
but yeah, and I mean, it
Yeah.
rocked my world for
Oh
hours.
yeah, yeah. My husband works for Amtrak, and he was telling me how he took a coffee in the morning, then he had a coffee at lunch, and then he had a coffee at night, and he was on the high speed train. He just said, "Oh my God, what was I thinking?" So yeah,
Oh, I bet.
you're not alone, but it is delicious.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So all right, so let's move away from the coffee. All right, so we're waking up. Good morning, Grizzly, and we're going to talk about treasure hunting. So I'm going to share one of my treasure hunting cases with you. A lot of people
Yeah.
have heard about it. I years ago, many moons. I mean, I'd almost say, wow, 30 years ago,
Okay.
we got a flyer at my dad's house, and some people know who my father is. He was a treasure hunter and a water dowser, and he used dowsing to locate all sorts of things, just like I do. And of course, I'm following in his footsteps. And we get a flyer in the mail, and it talks about a convention in Chicago. And I'm looking through it, and I thought, oh, this looks okay. And then I turn the page. You know how some of these conventions have multi speakers, and
Right.
some of them look far out, from the UFO to, and at that time, 30 years ago, it talking about UFOs was not as prevalent. So you got the paranormal, you got the psychics, you got the tarots, you got the witches, and all of a sudden, here's an article, like a paragraph. Um, Ingo Swann was coming. Now, have you heard about Ingo Swann? Do you know who he is?
No,
Okay, so Ingo worked for the government, I believe the CIA and various government agencies. He worked on both Stargate and I believe Stargate, and he only died a few years ago. And he was able to work on remote viewing, and he went and he completed a lot of out of body projects. But he was one of the first guys working on going out of his body, and the government asked him, go to this location. So let's say you and I are on 10th Street, and they said, we want you to go out of your body. And they call them OBEs. So I don't want to confuse things. There's NDE, which is, you basically die, near death experience, and you come back. Or you have an OBE where you go out of body experience. And he would do all this out of body experience and tell them what was at the location. And then one time when he was doing it, he said to the people monitoring everything he was saying that, oh my God, they saw me. And he's just a very good read. He was an amazing psychic. The poor guy couldn't hold on to his wife, so I think he was married at least 3 to 5 times. I'm sure he had a very hectic life. I know cops do; they have a very hectic life. But
Right.
this guy was all across the board, very, very talented. And I was determined to meet him at the convention. So I told my dad, let's go to the convention. So, so you're saying, what's the big deal about him? Well, you got these big wigs. You got the Uri Gellers. You got the Ingo Swans. You got the Angela Fords. You got the Joe McMonagles. These people are super talented. Their abilities have been honed. And when I say honed, both CIA, FBI, various agencies, working on various projects. And because you're getting that regular routine, just like a cop. Okay, we've got a homicide detective versus a missing person detective, and I think it's Vice. What is Vice? One of the departments?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the paranormal field, I call it the umbrella of the paranormal because it's such a plethora. And I was so determined to, just meet him and say hi and maybe have him autograph my book, which he did eventually autograph my book. So that was the instigator for me to go to Chicago and meet him and go to his class. Well, guess what? We got stuck in the traffic, which was a nightmare. And we finally get there, and it's 10 minutes before Ingo Swan's class was up. And we started to go into the room where he was lecturing, and there were 1,000 people there. So,
Oh, wow.
so getting that book signature was going to be out of the question. Whenever I do stuff, I don't like signing stuff anymore. People have asked me, but it's uncomfortable because I'm just me. But Ingo, I can I'm sure he's very used to it. He was very used to it. So he was done with his lecture. We went out in the hall, we started talking to people, and he came by and almost knocked me down, didn't mean to. And I said, "Oh, hi, Ingo." So here I am trying to just get a foot within him, and all of a sudden he accidentally almost knocks me down, which I thought was pretty funny. So he says, "Excuse me," and I said, "Do you mind signing my book?" "No, I got to catch a plane." I said, "Okay, good luck." And I saw him practically running down the hall of a hotel. And it was one of those hotels where it's a convention center that's absolutely huge. It can hold thousands of people, speakers, lectures, groups.
Right.
And so I wanted to give you an idea of the capacity of visitors. And he all of a sudden stops, touches his chin, turns around, runs, sort of walk fast back to me. And he goes, "Who are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm Ginette. I'm just Ginette. I'm the daughter of the famous dowser Louis Matacia." And he said hi, and they shook hands. And I said, "No, no." He goes, "Who are you?" And I said, "Just Ginette." And he goes, "No, really, who are you?" He kept bugging me. "Nobody. I'm nobody. No. He goes, "You're going to be really famous." And I said, "Okay, yeah, okay, that's very nice of you." And he goes, "Okay, so I gotta go." And he's taking his finger and pointing it in the air, like as if he's thinking about who I am. And hold on, I got a cough. Sorry, Richmond allergies. And he runs back down the hall because he's leaving and to catch his flight. But he did sign my book, his book, and he stops and talks to a couple of people. And the next thing you know, he takes off. You can't even see him. And these two people come up to me and they go, "So you're Ginette?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, you're supposed to find our buried treasure." I said, "Really? Okay." Weren't you a cop? And people were like, "You're supposed to help people. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that." Preconceived notion that you're going to do a great job helping people. Didn't people come to you and say, "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be doing this"?
That is wild.
It was wild. So anyway, so I talked to this couple. Let's call him Mr. Smith, which was their name, and they said we have a bunch of maps we want you to go over. And I said, okay, but I charge for my time. They said, okay, no problem. I mean, they were so confident I was going to find their treasure. I thought to myself, oh my God, I better deliver. And so the next day we met up. We went to a conference room, like a small conference room with table and chairs, and they pull out like 30 maps. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, how the heck am I going to find treasure with 30 different maps? I said, let's do this. Let's narrow it down. Whose treasure are we going after? And he goes, we have this person and this person and this story, this myth, MYTH, this, and a Capone case. And I said, okay, let's do the Capone case. He said, really? And I said, yeah, well, we know for a fact that he had stuff. So let's go with that lead. And so he puts down the 30 maps and he goes, well, these are my 30 maps for the other work, but here's the other 30 for the Capone case. And I said,
Are you talking about Al Capone?
yes, Al Capone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Al Capone. Oh yeah, I get calls for all sorts of stuff. People get amazed. They always think I do little itty bitty stuff. No, so he pulls out the maps, and he said, "Where do you want to go?" And so I'm touching the maps, and the first thing in my head was, and here's a sidebar: think like the Russians do. If the Russians could touch a map and they could tell you something was there, then the first thing you're going to get is there was a woman who was a psychic in Russia, and she would feel a stabbing pain in her hand, and she would know that that's where the treasure or the object was, whatever they were looking for. So I told myself to do that. Little did I know it's called synesthesia. And only 44%, 40, not 40, 4%, of the world has this ability, which I didn't know at the time. And we're going to come back to visit that. And so I touched the maps, and on one of the maps my finger got burnt, like a as if you took a cigarette and burnt my finger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really bad. And I was standing there. I mean, wait before I move on, have you ever had a funny feeling, a gut feeling when you were a
Yeah.
cop? And it's the same similar thing, but you can have a burn, you can have a gut feeling, you can have something in your head that's gnawing at you, um, harassing you or nagging you, and it just doesn't stop. And you're thinking to yourself, what is going on with my head? Am I crazy? So they laid down that particular map, and I said, well, how many acres is this? And he said, I mean, it was freaking ridiculous. It was like 200,000 acres, I think he said. Don't quote me. It was a ridiculous amount of acreage. 20,000 acres, I don't know, something like that. It was just ridiculous. And I kept thinking in my head, again regurgitating, oh my God, I better deliver. So I touched the map again, and I said, right here. So my first impression was touching the rolled up map. So I had to pick out of 60 maps this particular map that, let's call it number 29, that my finger felt like it was burnt. Unrolled it, and then when I touched the map, my finger felt like it got burned again when I went into the southeast corner. And I said, I like this right here. And he said, okay. I said, do you have another map that's closer? He pulls out another map, and it was very detailed. I don't think it was a topo map, and you really need to know your maps. So I tell people, whenever you go out and you go treasure hunting or going after a missing person, you have to have those maps. And I tell people, I go to AAA. I like the paper map. I know we have Google. I know you can print stuff out, but I like to know where I am. For example, I'm working on a case in Seattle right now, so I had to go get a Washington state map on the west side of Seattle, Washington. And a lot of people don't recognize the fact that if you have the piece of paper, it's right there. Now, again, they go, oh, go to Google and print it out. Well, that's great, but you have to have a starting point. I call it starting point A. So back to the Capone case, I pinpointed another site where I felt like I got burned on my finger, And I said, what else do you have? Because back then, 30 years ago, we didn't have Google at our option.
Right. Right.
No, we just, I mean, I guess if you're standing there and you're not prepared, you're not going to have all these maps ready. But of course, AAA was back then. And
Yep.
so these guys had all that kind of stuff. They didn't have you standing next to them from the area, which I also tell people, if you can get a hold of a cop who knows the area, if you're searching for search and rescue or for buried treasure, grab a cop along, because he'll say, oh, I went to that location. I went to that farm. I remember that area. Yeah, I know what's over there. I mean, that sounds goofy, but cops have more of an opportunity.
Did we lose you?
What was that?
Oh, I thought I lost you.
No, I'm here. Did it get cut off real bad?
No, it just got really quiet.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that I think that if you grab a cop and drag him along on a buried treasure case, you're going to have a bigger chance of finding the treasure. And I'll explain that in a few minutes. But what I tell people is take someone who's a local. You'll get better detail. You'll get an awareness. And I also call that the triangle effect, where if you have three of you together, the input for your mental telepathy is stronger, better, more accurate. So you got your maps, yay. You got your coffee, yay. And now you got to get your equipment. So then we narrow it down on the maps. And of course, back then we had street maps from AAA. And I narrowed down an area and I said, I want you to park right here. And then I want you to go so many feet into the farm field. And I want you to do a 10-foot radius. And I want you to do a 10-foot by 10-foot. I said, I know that sounds really big, but unfortunately, that's what I'm dealing with here. And then he marked it all up and said, okay. Well, 2 years later, he calls me and says, we're going out. We're going to, 2 years later. Would you wait 2 years if somebody said that girl's going to find you treasure?
No, I'll be digging in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I hear you. So I'm there too. I don't know why they waited 2 years. I think it was timing and the tools. At that time, GPR was very, almost everybody had it. It's ground penetrating radar. Looks like a lawnmower. Another way they did it was two guys held on to a piece of equipment, and it was like a belt on each side, like a very big purse that was flat. So the bad thing about the radar with the ground penetrating that looked like a lawnmower is that if you had flat property, it wasn't a problem really. But if you had the one that looked like a purse, you could do it easier. It's just more awkward. So they did the ground penetrating radar. The machine reacted, and they put flags out. That's what you normally take with you. That's one of your pieces of equipment. Your shovels, and they took his wife. I guess they took his wife as a watch my back person. The guns, and of course, I've talked about this. Take your first aid kit. Now, I do need to ask you something because you're the cop. Which pistol would you take? Would you take your 22? Would you take your 45? What would you take in a treasure instance?
Probably my 45.
What are you more comfortable with that? With like that's going to stop the guy?
Well, anymore these days, I tell people that goes out, hunting for Sasquatch or whatever.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can run across meth labs in the woods now, and unruly people that participate in the mess, and so you got to be cautious. So, and a 45 will stop a person in the tracks. That's why the government had it for many, many years in the service.
Oh, that's what they distribute?
Yep. It was a 1911 45 before they switched to the Beretta.
Okay, and so what's the Beretta? How many bullets are in that gun? Grizzly. How many bullets are in the? Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Well, yeah. Then the 45 7+1, but well, for the past, I say 10 or 15 years, you can get higher capacity magazines and certain make and models with 45, you can get 14, 15 plus one rounds.
Okay, so is
So
that the Beretta?
the Beretta, depends on what magazine. You can get them 17 plus one, 21 round magazines. But I think the government, when they went to the Berettas, I think it was either 15 plus one or 17 plus one. Don't
Mm-hmm.
quote me on
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I guess
But they
that
went
the
to the
Beretta,
9 millimeter NATO round.
so the Beretta's 9 millimeter.
Yep.
Okay, we just have to educate our ladies out there or gentlemen who don't usually use or carry a pistol. But I do.
Right.
That is one thing I would definitely keep in my house, or treasure hunting. So let's go back to the scene. So they have somebody to watch their back, and the GPR is paid off, and there's some kind of anomaly that's under the ground. So they decide to dig. It took about 4 feet, and they dig in a certain area and they put a pole down. A lot of people don't know that you can use a piece of rebarb, and if you stick it down in the earth and it stops, then something's there. And so they keep digging because apparently the rebarb has reacted that, oh, something's there. We're being stopped. And then they finally dig it up, and it turns out to be the hood of a car, an antique car. And um so they're digging. Sorry, I just dropped my water. So they're digging, and they pull up this hood to the truck, and they call me back and they say there's nothing here but the hood of a truck. And I thought to myself, that's crazy. That doesn't make sense. It was too hot to ignore. I said, what year is the year of the truck? And they go, about 1930, 1933. And I literally said to them, are you stupid? What year do you think Capone was there? I said, come on, wake up. He was in the 30s. Why would the hood of a truck be buried 4 feet deep in the middle of nowhere on a farm? I told you where to park. I told you where the radius was. Now go back with the GPR and see if something else is underneath of that. So they take the GPR back, and guess what? The GPR reacted even stronger than the first time. And so they start digging, and they go two more feet, I believe. And the next thing you know, they start finding silver bars. Now,
Wow.
before, and I'm talking about 60 bars of silver stolen from this federal government, probably an inside job. But let me tell people something. When you dig and you're digging up treasure, you have to be careful of booby traps. Now, Capone wasn't really like that. It was more that people were watching you where you were going so they could watch their goodies, but it was too late now. Everybody was dead. And the second thing was that when you're digging stuff up, some chemicals can come out of the earth and be poisonous and noxious and actually kill you. So you better start reading up on what you're digging for. All right. For example, if people call me from the Philippines, they're digging up some stuff, and they're these little blue bottles. And if you hit one, it's got a toxic fume to it. And they've had so many people die from it. It's not the chemical from the earth or environmental, it's chemical from a booby trap. So I just want people to be aware. Look at the whole picture and take photographs. My dad was big into anomalies with photographs, and I just got two calls last week about that. But it's extremely complicated to talk about. It's extreme. You have to be there. You have to take classes in it, understand it. You put different filters on your camera so you can see things. At any rate, they found over 60 bars of silver. I suspect they found more than that because Capone was so known for large scale theft. I mean, why would he just go after a little bit of this and a little bit of that? So the guys found it, and they finally came to Virginia from Illinois. They found the items in Illinois and visited me. And my dad bought one of the pieces, and I said, you guys really need to take this stuff, go to the news, it's stolen goodies, and tell the feds you found it, And what you do is you go to the media and you tell them, hey, I found this stuff from Capone. You're going to get a movie deal. I mean, how many you know that are going to find this kind of item? I mean, Geraldo didn't. We did. So I tell people,
Right.
turn it in. Don't get arrested for something stupid. Over in England, they have 2 or 3 guys still in prison. It's been like 3 years, and they won't tell the English government where the goodies are. They found a bunch of things. I don't know if it was 14th or 11th century, but in England, it's illegal to dig historical items up and try to sell them. It's not any
Wow.
it's not any different here in the US. In certain states, if you want to go treasure hunting, you have to literally lease the property. According to the state, I believe it's Arizona. You have to lease it, and then you have to show the perimeter of what you're doing. I've had people call me from Canada, and they have to lease different sections for gold mining, or lease different sections for just panning gold. It's really quite odd, but you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get arrested. So if it's something that you find that's historical, just go ahead and turn it in. Become the big guy, the better guy, and say, "Hey, I found this, and it's Al Capone." Do you know how many people are interested in that Al Capone information? I mean, we have a picture of it. I took one of the silver pieces to teach the Boy Scouts and talk about treasure hunting right after we found it, and I showed one of the bars of silver, and I kept telling my dad, "We really got to turn this in. I'm just not comfortable with it. I don't want to be in one of those conspiracy theory situations." Um, and my dad was out. Just a sidebar of what happened to my father. He was out working as a surveyor, and he got robbed at gunpoint, and it was stolen. And why he would ever take that with him to Washington D.C. I'm from the Washington D.C. area. Why he would do that, I'll never know. But um, he, he got robbed, and they took his truck, they took everything in his car, and he just happened to have the silver bar in the car. So it is what it is. I mean, I tell people, have a secure area, get a good safe. Um, and I would actually say get a good fireproof safe, and protect your goodies. On the internet, there are people all the time that show their goodies, and they don't realize they're putting themselves up for somebody robbing them. They just say, "Oh, look at what I have." And then recently they had a guy that had a ton of stuff, and he was older, I would say in his 80s, and he had decided to go ahead and turn it into a museum in his state because he had so much stuff, and he had no family members to leave it to, or kids. And he's telling everybody on the internet, "Hey, yeah, look all the stuff I found." Yeah, I don't know that that's a bright idea, but
Um,
I mean, I'm sure you have a safe, right?
oh yeah, more than one.
Yeah, if you have a safe, you probably have a gun. So if they want you to in it, so if they want you to open it up, say, "Yeah, come meet Mr. Beretta." Yeah, come meet my little friend. so so back at the ranch, yeah, I helped find a Capone case, and that was great. That turned out great. And now, do you have any friends that treasure hunt, or you don't?
No, but I would like to get into it. Because
I,
don't you got a guy in Indiana that's treasure hunt that you're helping?
I do. I have them all over the United States. It's amazing how many people call me. I just had a call today from, I think it was Kansas. He's lost some important legal paperwork, and after the show, I've got to go help him find his legal paperwork. People put together wills and they don't make extra copies, and that's really critical. It's like, snap out of it, people. Put it in a safe place called a safe.
Yeah.
So I deal with this frequently. People are not prepared. I also tell people, go to Office Depot. They have really good wills if you need a will. And a lot of people are not thinking through the process of a will. And you got to have it these days. And we have some strange things going on. And if you become victim, your family is taken care of, or your family knows where everything is. But a lot of people are being a little little bit sloppy about it, and they're just not taking care of things. So it's time to do that. It's time to make it a priority. Do
Yeah,
you
that's true. I
so do
agree with that.
you so I'm going to ask you a stupid question. Do you have a will already?
No, I had a semi will when I found out that I had cancer when I got hurt on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I went ahead and packed my bags, got everything in line, told the family where everything was, and had everything outlined and ready to go. So,
And you're still here.
yep, amen. I got
Yeah,
a second chance on life.
yeah, you never know who's going to stay and who's going to go. So you got to be prepared. I mean, I've told my husband, I said, God forbid I get COVID again, and I'm not here. I better leave you all the information to all my codes, to all my stupid ridiculousness. I said, give my sister all the paperwork for all my projects. Yeah, here's Mr. Smith's project undone. Here's Mr. Smith's project done. I mean, this is who I owe money. I mean, a lot of people don't realize what's your utility bill in. I mean, I don't know about now. You're moving, so I don't know about your state, Kentucky. I think it's a Commonwealth. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so to my knowledge, in Kentucky, the oldest child gets everything, or the oldest child can be power of attorney without paperwork. Now, don't quote
I
me on that.
think you're right on that. Don't quote me.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I have a friend who I keep trying to talk her into a will because she's a grandmother of taking care of 7 people. And I thought,
Wow.
you really got to have a will. This isn't playtime. Um, I mean, people are just doing drive-bys for fun.
Yeah.
So got to get it done. All right, so there's my Al Capone case. So I want to say to you that when the psychic walked by this couple, he had told them that I was going to find their treasure. So my take on this is, the moment I chose to decide to go to that conference, it was almost as if everything was laid out for me to find that treasure. And I tell people, put yourself in a good situation, team up, go with a cop or go with a friend, tell your family where you are, get a will, make a plan, and find that treasure. Bring it home, baby.
That's right. I mean, that's really incredible because, until I met you, and I never knew psychics had that ability to do something like that. Really?
Yeah, it's amazing. Some of us can find stuff that, I mean, I got a call recently about a little missing kid, and I didn't recognize it or realize it. I'd had a medical procedure, and I had taken some anesthesia, and I was trying to find the missing child, and it was harder than I thought because of the anesthesia. But I was able to tell, and also I pulled in a second psychic, and we both thought she was deceased. So I had to call the family and say, I believe you're looking for remains, not a child.
Oh, wow.
And that was not fun. And I don't like doing that, but I had to tell them, prepare yourself. This isn't going to turn out good. And this isn't a 50-50 guess. This is, I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. Um, but, we do really well. If it's something I'm not sure of, I just tell people I'm not really sure. It's better to just give a delivery of, we don't know.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
that's understandable.
cops do that, right? We're
Yeah.
not really sure, who broke in your house.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard. Well, it's a little bit easier these days with the technology,
Oh
but,
yeah,
dusting for fingerprints and stuff like that. And unless you know somebody that knows somebody that thinks somebody, it's usually a friend of the family's or somebody that lives in the neighborhood, or, it's somebody that's, has been breaking into a certain area where homes are located, massive homes, you get lucky and and they get caught in another county and they confess. So yeah, I mean that's happened a lot of times in Indiana.
Did you have to squeeze any confessions out of anybody?
No, we weren't allowed to. We couldn't use phone books and stuff.
Oh, you didn't. I don't know if they know that. Yeah, way back when the police used to use phone books because you couldn't see the bruising from the phone books.
Yeah, little slapjacks. Put the phone book on top and use your leather slapjack filled with lead shot and smack them on top of the head. Knock
Yeah.
him crazy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I knew about that because my sister was married to a cop and he laughed about it. And he turned out to be one of the guys that got arrested. They're called the something or other 11. And I said to my sister, she had married him, and I said, "You married a guy that brags about beating people, and he's a cop now, detective." I said, "Doesn't that concern you that you could be his next victim?" I said, "You can't be naive. Um, I mean, I know things have changed, but yeah." Um, I Rodney King. He was. It's called the 11. The 11 guys from Rodney King. The Rodney King case. I said, I don't know if that's a good idea. This isn't going well for you. You need to
Well,
rethink that.
there's ways that I know that I can defend myself and not leave any bruises on somebody. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, but sometimes you're in a position where you don't have a choice.
That is correct.
I really I think people don't realize how hard it is on cops, especially today. I have a cousin who is a cop in Florida, and every time you turn around, somebody's being killed by just getting an animal out of the road, or they're what's the word, flagging traffic, or they're trying to help somebody with a tire, and the guy or girl cop gets killed because somebody is literally aiming for them because they're on the side of the road. Have you seen this?
Yep.
I've seen it
I
more
heard
frequently.
about it in the news. Yes.
It's
Now,
got
roughly 15 or 18 years ago, let's see, I'm 48, maybe 20 years ago in Chicago, they would ram police cars on purpose.
yeah. I, well, you heard about the kid that took his car and hit what 30 police officers who were jogging recently.
Yes.
I, I I can't imagine. You're just trying to keep your health up, and you're trying to train, and here's all these people trying to aim for you. I mean, that is a 50% chance of being injured or killed on the job. It 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 just seems like scary moments.
Oh, and that's like, what was it last year, the year before? Well, it's been, what, 2 to 3 years where they were assassinating officers pumping gas at a gas station or
Oh,
sitting
really?
in the car. Yep.
Yeah, and everybody's a lot of people are saying, "Oh, they're the bad guys." They're not all the bad guys. I mean, they're bad teachers, they're bad cooks, they're bad waitresses. I mean, too much of the judging and labeling.
Oh, my
So,
screen just blinked.
what was that?
So my screen just blinked.
It blinked. Yeah, it's in agreement with
Oh.
me. No, I swear, I'm speechless at some of the brutality out there right now.
I
So,
mean, it's really sad. It really is. Then you got these, what do you call them? Travelers. What's the term they use that they call themselves now?
sovereign states.
Yeah,
Is
sovereign
that what you're talking
citizens.
about?
I'm like,
What?
good gracious.
Yeah, I just saw that in Hawaii. I guess some of the people out there are considered sovereign states, but I guess that's been more proven because they are actual Hawaiians. That's they're from the era of the generational Hawaiians genetically, and that sovereign situation I totally get. but other people that are just using the tactic, oh, I'm from a sovereign state. No, you're not. Uh, have you ever seen those TV shows where people are talking about, or they ride along with cops and watch what's going on? Certainly, that's an eye opener.
Yes.
Mm. So, all right. So, what are we going to talk about? Do you have any casework you want to talk about and share with the audience?
Now, what was that one that we were talking about the other day where somebody robbed a gas station or something?
Um, well, I think the Idaho case, or we were talking about Idaho case. Are you talking about that particular case?
Yeah, where the clerk was involved and two people were robbing it or something.
Oh, okay. So we were talking about a case, I would say in the Midwest. I'm not really quite sure where it was, but what had happened was two guys went in, robbed a clerk
Yeah,
at,
that's right.
at gunpoint, and they had, let's say it was a Beretta, it was not a 45. And when they leave, so they did not shoot the clerk, they left, they were on the gas station property. And so let's say two gas pumps were right there. So they're quite a distance. So let's say maybe 150, 50 to 100 feet away from the actual building, but they were still on the premises. So the clerk comes out with a gun and they decide, so he's shooting at them, which is not exactly safe at a gas station. And they shoot back, kill the clerk, and then eventually they go to court. You got a dead clerk and you have these two perpetrators, and they get off scot-free. That they get self-defense for killing this guy, the clerk, because, oh, by the way, you're defending yourself from a clerk who just decides to come out and shoot you. And then you said that the threat was over. So give me your feedback on that.
Yeah, and like Kentucky, you have state your ground rules, right? Where wherever you're at, you can state and protect yourself on the ground. And from my understanding, from the way it was told, is after they left the scene, the clerk pursued the people after the threat was over.
Right.
So he went outside to pursue the threat and engage the non-threat now because they actually left the scene, which would be the building. And so he actually initiated the confrontation and the shooting. So that's where I think where the law stepped in, my opinion, for that state, which I don't know what state it was in or what the law is in that state, whatever state it was. But that was my consensus when I heard about it. So,
Yeah,
and it's sad.
it's very sad. You've got a dead family member who was trying to do the right thing. He didn't own the store. I do understand that, but he is trying to stop these people from shooting anybody else or taking on another robbery, and he loses his life over it.
Now, if
I,
he would have dropped him in the store, that would have been a different subject.
yeah, yeah. So, what is that considered if he decided to drop them in the store?
Then and that would have been self-defense.
Okay,
You know,
yeah,
yeah. I don't think any charges would have been initiated unless a bystander would have been hit. During the process of him trying to stop the threat, because you're liable for each round that comes out of your gun, just like law enforcement's are. Police are as well.
mm.
Each time you fire your rifle or your pistol, each round where they go, you are accountable for. So you got to be careful of your backdrops and so forth.
Yeah. See, that's my concern. Is there have been cases where cops shot and the bullet traveled and killed a kid, and
Right.
would that cop be charged with homicide?
Well, it could be charged manslaughter. It really depends on the rules of the state, how the prosecutor would prosecute the case as well. But
Mhm.
there are certain rounds that law enforcement use that will not overpenetrate, that will expand and probably not exit. And so you still got to be aware of your surroundings. There's some cases where I've seen in other states where law enforcement has actually fell to the ground to shoot up. That way, any rounds that either miss or penetrate and exit the body goes up to the ceilings. So that's some very intelligent moves, tactical moves on their part. But the thing though is, anytime law enforcement is involved in a shooting, that is split second decisions that were made, and then the jury and the media has eternity to crucify or review that officer's actions and criticize them, which I don't think's right.
It's very judgmental. Let me ask you a question from your knowledge. If a cop shot somebody and killed somebody, got arrested for a misdemeanor, or got arrested for, I guess, the level of, or even self-defense, and he serves time, is he allowed to go to another state, get a job as a cop, or he's off, that kind of work is off limits for him?
No, it follows you, you know, especially domestic violence. If you've been charged with that, they'll take your badge and gun. So usually any major crime, felony, uh, I think there are a few misdemeanors that are non-criminal that they will probably waive, but I think in the long run, off the record, I think it would still hurt them. They probably wouldn't want to take a chance.
Well, I do know that some cops, what they do is they jump into becoming a security person. Um,
Right.
so they work for the private sector. That there's also guys that have been known to work for the prison system, and they get in the door that way because they're more familiar with, hey, I've been in prison and I know how to handle them, the people
That's
here.
true.
All right, so I have heard about that. But I was just always curious. Well, okay, so for example, there were a bunch of cops that I believe for the Floyd incident, they quit their jobs, and DeSantis said, "Come on down, we'll pay for you to get here, and we'll give you a $5,000 bonus because they're short on cops."
Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy because, one department may not look at another department actions to be correct,
All right,
and that's hard to explain in a public's view. I mean, we all have our opinions, and some of our opinions may not be justified, and we're just going along with a group because of their own beliefs, I should say. Not trying to start a riot or anything, ladies and gentlemen,
but so
but
all right, so
that's been proven across the United States in the past 8 years.
all right, so some of these people, because it sounds like to me, some of these people are, or my judgment call is, some of these people are not. Some are educated, some are not, meaning police officers, and some of the cops are, if they're educated, they can move on to a different kind of career. And because basically when you get out of the prison, penal colony, whatever you want to call it, you have to start your life all over. A lot of people have a hard time just getting a job.
Yeah,
But
it does. It really does haunt you. And even though they say they served their time and paid for it, they actually pay it for eternity. And I know some states are trying to squash the file or seal the file. Like once you turn 18, it goes away.
right.
But I don't see that ever passing. I really don't. Unfortunately, statistics has proven that a lot of people, unfortunately, do repeat themselves. A lot of people that have been in prison, unfortunately, once they get out, do not know how to act, or they go back to their old friends and they get involved in their old routines and get caught again and go right back in.
Hmm. I have a relative who was arrested at 17 for drug dealing, and he got on the straight and narrow. But they sealed his case, being the fact that he was a minor and he was charged being a minor. But during the process of arresting him, a cop kicked him in the head on purpose. And
Oh,
then,
wow.
yeah, this is a 17-year-old. And so the brutality, let's see, the kid is now, God, I would almost say he's 40, maybe 42, and he still has a little bit of problems with the damage from the cop just kicking the kid. I mean, what was that about? I mean, a lot of men are just like, I'm going to kick this kid. I mean, oh, that was fun. Yeah, I got a kick in, you know. But the kid
Well,
now, it is on. He's doing well, and he he's been arrested 3 more times for drinking, and after the third time, he was in a really bad jail. And he said, "That's it. I'll never get arrested again," because it was one of the scariest jails in the U.S. And he is on the straight and narrow.
and
So
see, and that actually happens, but you also have to understand what field you're in, what line of work. You're always going to have your bad apples, and that's guaranteed. Now,
yeah.
one thing I can say that is different from my time and my grandfather's time, and my brother, he's also in law enforcement, is the technology when it comes to cell phones. People recording stuff, taking pictures of stuff. There's more people out there recording law enforcement than there ever has been, and they're catching law enforcement doing stuff that officers are so frustrated or peed off about, maybe chasing a perp 4 or 5 blocks, who knows? And they're doing stupid things that they probably never would do. So, and that's why some departments have rules that, if you are chasing a vehicle in pursuit, you cannot make the arrest. Somebody else has to because of your adrenaline. So,
Really? So can you
yeah.
define that better for me?
Huh?
So so if you're in a cop car, you can't make the arrest, or if you're the one running after somebody, you can't make the arrest.
So let's say, and this is for some of the bigger departments that in certain states, is that say that you're running from me and I am chasing you down in a police car, and there's 4 or 5 other officers with me, and we have gone on through 2 or 3 counties or whatnot. We have crossed state lines or whatnot. When it's over, I cannot arrest you or touch you because my adrenaline will be so hyped up. I may rough you up a little bit because I'm really peed off that you ran for so long and didn't yield and pull over, that I may do something that I'm not aware of to you, whether it's putting on the handcuffs too tight and squeezing the circulation out, or just roughing you up, trying to get you out of the car and slamming you on the ground, or slamming you on the hood, or something minute and ignorant.
So
So
when did this
go
change
ahead.
occur? Yeah. So when did
It,
this?
it
Can you hear me?
it's actually been that way from some departments, even before I got on.
Okay,
So yeah,
good to know. So it I
and
guess it
some
disturbs.
departments do. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that I'm seeing a lot more cops just attacking the youth, and they think it's okay to hurt them, or I hate to say this, shoot them. I mean, my heart goes out to these mothers where the kid is at the playground. He's got a plastic gun, And the next thing you know, he's gunned down. I mean, I really do feel for these women. I mean, they brought up their child, they adore their child, and he's not doing anything except for playing cowboys and Indians for all we know. And the next thing you know, your son turns up deceased. I mean, it could be a daughter,
Well,
but typically son.
look at the circumstance. Now, when I was growing up, our toys guns looked like real guns. Okay.
Right.
And now, as I got older, a lot of the toy guns had orange inserts in the barrels to let everybody know that, hey, this is not a real gun. This is a toy gun made for play. And what some of the teenagers would do is either paint the orange black so it would blend in and use that to rob people or not. Because when you are in a position where you are asked to give up your wallet, rings, or whatnot, and somebody's waving around a gun, you do not know if that is real or not. I mean, your adrenaline's pumping, you're really excited. You don't know if you're going to get killed. You don't know if you're going to get shot or wounded. You don't know if your loved one's going to get killed. So there's a lot of things going through your head. And when police officers don't see an orange barrel or anything, and especially the BB guns as today are so realistic that match the guns on the market, I mean, you really can't tell with a split second decision whether you're going to get shot and live or you're going to have to shoot to stop the threat. And, to me, it's sad that they make things so realistic to the real guns, I guess, to entice the younger generation to buy that because it looks like that Beretta. It looks like that Colt 1911. It looks like that Glock, and
Oh, absolutely.
pulling one out right away, you know, really makes you stop and think. Now, when I owned my gun store, I had a juvenile that stole a 1911 off my shelf, and how it happened is one of my staff was showing 1911s, and mine opened from the front, not the back. And it's weird, but we had locks on the cabinets. So when he moved the glass over to the far right just to reach in and grab the pistol on the left, this juvenile came in. It was during a festival, and he grabbed a gun off the shelf. Nobody saw it, and he was walking out. The couple coming in said, he grabbed a gun. He grabbed a gun. And I automatically have two on me. I ran out the door and I saw him take off running. And when he did, he turned around and reached for a gun, which I didn't know was mine. And I blinked and I thought, I'm going to have to drop this kid that's probably 14 years old because he's getting ready to kill me. And as I pulled out my firearm, I was squeezing the trigger and it was going to go bang. And I was going to do a double
Yeah.
tap, bang, bang.
Yeah.
And hopefully he didn't shoot me. And the gun went up in the air. What he was doing, he was tossing it. And once he did that, I automatically let go of the trigger quickly, put my gun inside my waistband, and I jumped on him. And I was screaming for my staff to hand me a set of handcuffs from inside because we also sold, police equipment to local law enforcement. And, the cavalry showed up and they're like, we cannot believe you did not kill this kid. And I'm like, well, I hesitated, and it actually could have been my life. I mean, that may have been his gun that he was pulling out to shoot me to run away with. Who knows? So it really makes you stop and think after the incident's over how it could have ended up with, or how it could have ended up, So it really makes you think.
Yeah, I just coincidentally, I've been talking to kids, and they always ask me questions about certain things. And I keep telling them that it's so important that you learn and educate yourself, or even go to classes about guns. You want to call it a pistol, call it a pistol. You want to call it a rifle, and so be it. Yeah, but the problem is a lot of kids will just think you pick it up and shoot, and that's it. I know that sounds very basic, but I really believe that's what the kids today are thinking. You just you just shoot. It, it TV makes it look easy.
Well, they do, and and you see on TV people picking up, handguns and turn them sideways and shooting, and all different kinds of ways, and the old saying is spray and pray.
Oh, it
It's
is.
Yeah, that means just pull the trigger as fast as you can and hope it hits your target or whatever as you're running away, and that's what spray and pray means.
Uh, That's rough.
So, but and law enforcement, when they pull you over, they don't ask you, do you have any firearms in the car? They say, do you have any guns or weapons? And that's harsh terms. And I always told people with concealed carry, say, no, I have a handgun. No, I have a firearm. They're less harsh terms or words for what you have, you know, because a weapon could mean anything. Uh, and that's why in the news media, they don't say, firearm. They say weapon, pistol, or, you know,
So
um,
what's the new term? When I grow up, they always say, when I had friends in the Marine Corps, and I worked for the Marine Corps, and they would always say something like, "This is my pistol. This is my gun. One is for shooting. One is for fun." And as silly as that sounds, it actually, you know, puts in the person's head, yeah, this isn't playtime. This is serious. Um, for example, my neighbor is considering going in the Marine Corps, and I thought to myself, "Oh my God, I don't think you're ready for that." I mean, he's a kid, but he's still thinking, "Oh, this is going to turn out great. My dad was a Marine, and so forth." Some people are just not military material.
no,
Period.
you're right.
You
And
know,
they're
I
not prepared mentally either.
no. I mean, my father was in both Army and Marine, and he was able to withstand a lot. I mean, in the Philippines, they would, we're sort of getting off course here, but in the Philippines, they would have to put their gun above their head and crawl in crocodile infested waters. Basically frightening, but they did it. They survived. Personally, I'm sure one out of every 300 was eaten, but I mean, they had crocs. They didn't have alligators. So
Yeah,
that's
that's a big difference.
yeah, very aggressive, very frightening. So let's move on. So we're going to talk about. I guess we'll just talk about a couple of cases. So I don't know. Did I share with you one of my kid cases that I helped find? True crime.
No,
Okay, so
no,
I'm gonna.
absolutely.
I'll share that with you and see if the audience is. It's a feel good story because not everybody gets to have to bring their little loved one home. Um, I had a client who called me regarding a missing person case, and they said, I'm so and so," which was I had met the wife and I had met the husband, but they were divorcing, and their little girl disappeared. And the feds had come in, and they were all over the place. I mean, when I say all over the place, I mean the radius they had chosen was a 30-mile radius, and then they were doing another 30 miles and so forth because the kid disappeared the day before. Now, why the feds weren't on the case that quicker, it just happened. But what was interesting is the family called me and said, "Can you help us?" And I said, "Yeah, come on over to my house real quick. I'm not going there. It's a mess. You know how that is."
Right.
And they came over to the house, and the wife was boohooing. And I said, let me touch her clothing. And I said, oh my God. She goes, what? I said, she's alive. And she goes, really? Does somebody have her? And I said, no. I said, she's hiding. She's run away. It's not like she's been, taken or abducted. They kept thinking, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And I said, yeah. And they said, the feds are not going to agree. And I said, well, I don't, I can't help that. And she called her husband because he was at the scene, and he knew me. And so he stayed on the phone, and I said, okay, the girl left the elementary school. So let's say this was a Thursday, and they had left and gone to a friend's house. And I said, I'm getting a name like Sheila. So they went to Sheila's house, and at Sheila's house, it had a shed in the backyard, and they had set up the shed. So this was all prearranged by a bunch of 5 and 6 year olds to help the little girl run away from her parents who were divorcing. All right. And I tell people, listen, little kids are afraid of change. They're afraid of daddy's going over here, mommy's going over here. Are they going to be abandoned? A lot of things go through their head. So at any rate, the good news was the next day the feds got involved. And of course, they were at the elementary school. They were at the parents' house. And I kept saying, no, you're looking for a child who's alive. It's all good. And they didn't want to hear it, but eventually I said, listen, go to this kid's shed. And what you do is she has got a bed set up. They've got food. The little girls are feeding her. It's their little secret. You know what I mean? And
Right.
they eventually got there. I guess they didn't want to believe us. I can't remember if it was a 3-day missing. And they went there and they found her alive. And she was in the shed. And she had some dirty dishes from one of the little girls. And the determination on 4 little girls to save this little girl from the word divorce, and the abandonment, I guess, from her parents was definitely there. Definitely a discomfort zone. Now, it could be one of the little girls was already going through or had already been through the word divorce. So children definitely get immersed in emotion, and they get immersed in what do I do now? And their conclusion is, oh, let's run away, or unfortunately could have been an abduction. But the good news was that uh, my work was found to be correct. And again, I tell people I'm not correct. I'm not correct all the time, but when I'm correct, and I say to you, I'm really sure of this. I feel really good about it. Um, I stick to my story, and I say this is where you need to go. And people don't always want to hear that. And I'm stuck with the judgment call. Oh, she's a psychic.
All
So
right.
she's a bozo, or she's a crazy person. And so I'm trying to stop that track and go with just the facts and little detail. I'll never forget the one time I worked with a Falls Church / Arlington, Virginia cop. And I'm in the car talking to them. Everything's fine. I think I'm just having a cordial conversation. And I get out of the car, and the cop walks me to the door, the male cop. And he goes, she thinks you're crazy and eccentric. I said, I'm sitting here giving you my time, and I'm crazy and eccentric. Tell you what, I don't know if I'll be helping you again. And it's a tough. The field I'm in is very tough. I mean, I know cops have it worse, but being a psychic is, I don't want to say full time, because you really can't be a full time psychic unless you work for a store or some kind of circumstance where people can meet you all the time. Um, they call these stores Aquarian stores or crystal stores. I mean, they're good. Sometimes you have people that just are readers. They don't do a ton of missing people work or true crime work or buried treasure work. But we're certainly an unusual breed. But a lot of times, if the psychic has experience with the governments or commercial industry or various police departments, it immerses you immediately in to what to say and what not to say. And so now what I do is I just get in, get out, and I don't even talk to the cops. It's so much easier. I prefer to work with cops, just getting the job done and showing the facts. Families can be so traumatized, they just start making up stories. Oh, she did this, she did that. And they're just so traumatized, they just want to blame somebody for their circumstance, even if it's a tragedy. And then you have parents who are actually hurting their children, killing their children, and they blame the psychic. Well, I had this energy, and they just blow it out of proportion that their decision was based on an evil entity, or based on the husband, or based on this or that. I mean, we've all heard about the case where the woman killed her 5 children. She drowned them, and she had postpartum from having 5 babies. I mean, personally, I don't
Right.
understand. I don't understand personally, but I know it's definitely chemical imbalance. I mean, the first sign of having a problem, the husband should have said something, but maybe he just wanted to ignore it, go to work, come home, go to work, come home. I mean, 5 babies at once is a lot. I mean, his
Yeah.
first answer is, my wife's crazy. I'm going to divorce her, get married to somebody else, have more kids, and she's in prison for years to come. I mean, yeah, talk about stand by your man or stand by
Right.
your man. Ouch. So,
Yeah.
what do you want to talk about tonight, Grizzly? We'll talk
I'm
about
open to anything. I think once we get the show rolling, true crimes, talk about some of the cases that's been in the news and past news. I mean, what are we going to do when people start calling or typing up saying, hey, what about my daughter that's been missing for 2 weeks? Because I've been into some psychic groups where parents or family members have been frantically asking for help that my daughter's been missing. Please call the police if you have any information. And I'm like, you're in a psychic group of 27,000 people and you're telling them to call the police. And I mean, you're asking for help. So, I never went back and looked at the responses or anything, but what are we going to do when that happens?
I don't know. I guess the big thing here is people need to understand that if you really want to participate in using a psychic, do it the right way. Hire them, do a contract if you have to, if you feel more comfortable. But again, they have really good psychics out there, and they have really poor psychics out there. So, it's a time to rethink, use your common sense, and think about what you're doing before you do it. I have a lady who one time said she paid me $5,000 to help her with her missing niece. First of all, the woman lived in a trailer. Second of all, she had just recently divorced and didn't have a job. And she wanted to pay me via credit card. And I said, I don't take credit cards. She's telling everybody in the public, oh, I paid her with my credit card. You didn't have one. you know? Um, and also her husband, her ex-husband, or up and coming ex-husband at the time, was a cop. We could always go back and talk to him and say, do you remember spending $5,000 on Ginette helping you with your niece's case? No, because we didn't have $5,000. We were filing bankruptcy. I didn't get paid
Wow.
$5,000. There's nothing wrong with paying a psychic for her time. People, you're paying for her time. You're taking her time away from her family, just like a regular job. Just take it step at a time, and instead of getting angry, do it the right way.
I mean, that makes sense.
Oh yeah. So with all these people out there complaining, then don't move ahead with using a psychic. Look at your other options. You know what a private investigator costs these days? Oh,
Oh, man.
oh yes. If he wanted to, if you hired a PI, you're paying your gas mileage is not 60 cents or something like that. Or let's say the gas was $3 a gallon. You're getting charged 60 to 120 to $1.20 per mile. All right. So let's say they went from one point to another and 5 miles, let's say 5 miles. Oh, so you owe him $10 plus the PI fee, plus he wanted to get a Starbucks. He had to get a drink. You got to pay the Starbucks because you got to pay all expenses. Plus he has a partner in the car. Got to pay for the partner. The going rate could be 30. It used to be 20. Now it's 30 to 120 and up an hour. If they are prior experienced um, agency people like FBI, or they're agency people like DEA. I've worked with DEA. You're going to be paying a lot more because of their expertise, but then they're going to shorten the time frame of your crime, whether it's homicide or whatever. Of course, there's some cops that take advantage of people, retired cops or retired people that I'll be working on this for a long time. Yeah, because you just made 50 grand and you're aiming to make another 100,000. And to some of these families, that's just a drop in the bucket. They don't care. They want their kid back. They're traumatized.
Right.
So, well, let's do this. When's our next meeting?
Well, I say let's do our next show after the holidays, like January 6th.
That sounds good. And maybe by that time we can discuss the Idaho families and see if there's any new updates on catching the criminal that perpetrated these poor college students.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really feeling strongly about it that they're going to solve it. The profiler is saying it's going to take a while, but I don't think so. I think the DNA is going to kick in, and I think they're going to be happy about the outcome, and they're going to catch the guy.
Have you ever thought about going paranormal with ghost hunters or?
Oh, I've done it many a time. I used to help out with a group called the Fortean Organization in the DC area. So they were based in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And I helped with all their ghosty tours, investigations. And then I've worked on other investigations with other people. My favorite, to be honest with you, out of all the investigations I've ever done, which a lot of people probably don't know about it, we were given special permission to do an overnight. We didn't spend the night. We were awake the whole time. And I brought a physicist with me at the Woodland Lawn Plantation, and that's in I guess it's in Fairfax County, Virginia, but it was George Washington's granddaughter's house, and he had it built just for her. And you could, if you were the top, yeah, if you were at the top of the building of George Washington's house, he could see her and she could see him and wave at each other. And you had people coming to her house that were very high profile people, and she had married a Louisiana, I guess he owned a plantation. I would say if it wasn't rice, maybe it was cotton or both. And he was caught beating her. So I guess basically George said, "You're out of here, dude." And and she stayed there with her kids. And George apparently was loving, a very loving person with them and his great great grandchildren, and just really enjoyed being around them. And so he wanted to stick around. So he stuck around as long as he could until he died. With his, he died of an STD. I guess you know that, right?
Right.
Yep, poor guy. You men out there, go get cleaned up. All right, so I want to knock our president because he was our number one president, but I do want to say, I think that was my favorite. We got to do a tour, and we got to do. I was also lucky enough to be booked for a party for the George Washington plantation, and our gift in exchange, instead of payment, we got a very small payment, but we were given a dinner at the home of George Washington. Now, I got to tell you, a gourmet chef, and we got to try different foods and different booze. And when I say booze, I'm talking wine. And at the time, I brought my boyfriend, who was very worldly, and he said, "Oh, you want to try this, or you want to try that, or you want to try this," because he had been all around the world and he knew what was good and what wasn't. And it was the most. I would say there were probably 15 of us sitting there having dinner, and the tab went to the home of George Washington. That was very generous.
Wow.
Yep. And it was definitely a haunted location, but it historically, it had so many facts. It was fantastic.
Wow.
But I get around. I'm very lucky. I've been very fortunate to work on a lot of ghost investigations that are really, really good. The key factor in ghost investigations, I know this sounds goofy, but have you ever seen those people scratched on the back? Get your first
Oh,
aid.
yes.
I talk to people all the time. Get your first aid kit. Get your gun with you. I don't know, a gun's going to stop a ghost, but you also have fans that come in that are not stoppable. But I really feel strongly that it's really critical that you are extremely aware of your, because you have, people that vandalize these historical foundations too. That's a bit
Yep.
of a problem. So yeah, no, I've been around with ghost hunting. I was around ghost hunting way before anybody else. And the reason I say that is, in 1998, the Smithsonian ran an article about me, ran an article about dowsing, and I was in half a page of an article about my paranormal forensic dowsing. And here's the thing is people always say, oh, we did this and we did that. It is all good. Everybody's got a great story. But I was very fortunate enough to go to the home of George Washington. I mean, our number one president, come on. I mean, that's sheer luck,
Yeah, that's true.
It was phenomenal. All right. So we're going to talk again around the 6th. And everybody, happy holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do people get a hold of you?
So if they need me, they can call me on my phone, 571-358-1444, 571-358-1444. And if I can't answer, leave a message and leave your number twice. Now, I'll let you know on the 6th if I find this man's missing paperwork. Hopefully I will.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can also reach us at Grizzly Paranormal and True Crimes at MicrosoftOutlook.com. I think that's what it is, isn't it, Ginette? Or is it Outlook.com?
I should know. I'm relying on you for that one.
Yeah, it's Grizzly Paranormal True Crimes at Outlook.com. That's what it is. And ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the evening, unfortunately, where Ginette and myself, we must say goodnight, goodbye. From coast to coast, all around the world, this was our first show. We really look forward to other shows as we get deeper into true crimes and more paranormal signs. And if you ever have questions, type it out. Let us know. Don't be shy. We're not. Ginette told us how to reach her. Also how to reach her by email. Coast to coast, around the world. From us to you. Good night, everybody.